In problem 5-14A, we are getting our first look at adjustments and the worksheet. Remember that the worksheet is simply a tool that the accountant uses to analyze what adjustments need to take place, and it's a tool that they will use to prepare the financial statements. Your books are not actually being adjusted when you prepare the worksheet. It is just a tool for gathering the necessary information. So problem 514A says the trial balance after 1 month of operations for Mason's delivery service as of September 30th, 2020 is shown in your working papers. Data to complete the adjustments are as follows. So this is on page 164 in your textbook. You're given information for 4 adjusting entries, and what you're asked to do is to enter those adjustments in the columns of the worksheet and then complete the worksheet. If you recall from the chapter, there are 5 steps in completing the worksheet. The first step has been done for you in your working papers. The first step is to list every account and its balance from the general ledger in the trial balance. So the accounts are listed, the trial balance is prepared. You can see that it totals $15,420. It must balance. Your trial balance must balance for you to move forward to the next step in the process. So the next step in the preparation of the worksheet, the second step, is to prepare the adjustments. So looking at the information for adjustments, we'll first look at A, which says supplies inventory as of September 30th, $90. So the supplies inventory on September 30th is $90. That is what you have left. Recall that the adjustment for supplies is always for the amount used. So we are going to have to calculate what has been used. If you look at your trial balance, supplies has a balance of $635. And now they're telling us that the actual ending balance is $90. So the difference between what we started with, the $635, and what we have left, the $90, would be the amount that was used. So $635 minus $90 would tell us that $545 in supplies have been used. So the amount of your adjusting entry is $545. And the adjustment for supplies is always a debit to supplies expense and a credit to supplies. So you must follow over on the supplies line. Supplies expense. Find the supplies expense line and follow over to the adjustments debit column. And in the adjustments debit column, you are going to record your debit. So we will indicate that this is adjustment A, and it is a debit of $545. And then we will go up and find our supplies account and follow over on that line to the adjustments credit column. Once you get to the adjustments credit column, then you will enter the credit portion of adjustment A. It is a credit to supplies for $545. Every adjusting entry must have a debit, must have a credit, and they must equal. Okay, our second adjustment, B, says insurance expired or used $650. They tell us how much was used. So that is always the amount of your adjusting entry, the amount that was used. You will have to pay attention in these problems. Sometimes for supplies, sometimes for inventory, they'll tell you how much is left. And you'll have to calculate how much was used, as we did in entry A here. Sometimes they'll tell you how much was used, as they are doing in entry B. So that is the amount of our adjusting entry here. And the adjustment for insurance used is always a debit to insurance expense and always a credit to prepaid insurance. So we'll go down and we'll find our insurance expense line, and we will follow over to the adjustments debit column. We'll indicate this is adjustment B, and we will enter the debit of $650. Then we will move up and find the prepaid insurance account, follow over on that line to the adjustments credit column. Again, we have to notate which one it is. So for entry B, we are crediting prepaid insurance for $650. Our debits equal our credits for entry B, so we will move to entry C, which says depreciation on delivery equipment, $600. They give us the depreciation. We do not have to calculate it. So we simply must make the adjusting entry. The adjusting entry for depreciation is always a debit to depreciation expense and always a credit to accumulated depreciation. So we will go down on our worksheet to find the depreciation expense line. We will follow over to the adjustments debit column and enter the debit to depreciation expense of $600. Then we will move up on our worksheet and find the account for accumulated depreciation. Do not make an entry to the delivery equipment account itself. You must make the entry to accumulated depreciation delivery equipment. So we will follow over on that line, accumulated depreciation, and we will enter our credit adjustment of $600. For entry C, our debits equal our credits, so we will move to entry D. Entry D says wages earned by employees but not paid as of September 30th, $350. So remember, anytime there have been wages earned by employees but has not been paid at the end of the period, we are required to make an adjusting entry. That adjustment is always a debit to wages expense and a credit to wages payable. So we will move down on our worksheet and find the wages expense account. Follow over to the adjustments debit column for wages expense and enter our debit of $350. We will find the liability account, wages payable, and move over to the adjustments credit column and enter the credit of $350. So we have debits equal to credits for entry D, and that's all of our adjustments. But before we move on, we must total the adjustments columns. So we single rule and we add the adjustments debits, and we will get $2,145. Then we add the adjustment credits column, and we will get $2,145. $45. When those two columns equal, then we will double rule, and we're ready to move to the next step of the worksheet. So again, step 1 was to complete the trial balance. Step 2 was to complete the adjustments. And now we're ready for step 3. And we're going to do that the best we can, working with this technology. Normally a worksheet is one long piece of paper, but for our working papers, you can see that it's two different papers. They really should be connected and be one large piece of paper. But what we do in step 3 is extend to extend to the adjusted trial balance. We are going to extend each line of our worksheet to the adjusted trial balance. So the first line of our worksheet is cash. And cash, if we follow across, had a debit of $1,600 on the trial balance, and it was not affected by an adjustment. If it's not affected by an adjustment, then we're simply going to copy that amount over into the adjusted Okay, so I'm having difficulty with this iPad trying to look at both pages at one time. So just try to listen closely as to what you need to be doing as we complete this. So for cash, you're going to follow over to that next set of columns, to the adjusted trial balance column. And since cash was not affected by an adjustment, you're simply going to write $1,600 in the adjusted trial balance debit column in your working papers. Okay, and then the next line, accounts receivable, you will follow over on that line. It had a $940 debit balance on the trial balance. It was not affected by an adjustment, so you should simply write the $940 in the debit column of the adjusted trial balance. Moving down to the next line, supplies had a debit balance of $635, but then it was affected by a credit adjustment of $545. So when you have a debit and a credit, you are going to subtract. So $635 minus $545 is going to leave you with a $90 debit balance for supplies. So that's what you will write in the adjusted trial balance column, is a $90 debit. Moving down to the next line, prepaid insurance had a $1,200 debit balance, but it was affected by a $650 credit adjustment. So again, a debit and a credit, they're opposites. You are going to subtract. So $1,200 minus the $650 is going to leave you with a $550 debit balance that will go on the adjusted trial balance debit column. The next line, delivery equipment, $6,400 was not affected by an adjustment. Your equipment accounts should never be affected by adjustments. So $6,400 would be carried over to the adjusted trial balance debit column. Moving down, accumulated depreciation did not have a balance on the trial balance, but then there was a $600 credit adjustment. So basically what you're looking at is 0 plus a $600 credit. So the accumulated depreciation delivery equipment account is going to have a $600 credit balance on the adjusted trial balance. I think you can continue working. So you'll go line by line. I do want to skip down and show you here wages expense. Wages expense had a $1,500 debit balance and a $350 debit adjustment. When you're looking at debits and debits, you're going to add those together. So $1,500 plus $350, wages expense would have a $1,850 debit balance on the adjusted trial balance. And I think the best way to finish this problem is to make a second video. So this will be the end of part 1 video for problem 5-14A, and then we'll pick up on the next video to complete this problem.